Hello, welcome to Get Your Mind On. I'm Laurie Stos. So as we continue on our journey of strengths, last week we talked a little bit about those of you who are managers and how to use your strengths every day in managing, first, yourself and knowing why you manage. So I hope you took some time to think about your strengths as a manager and really what your passion around management is. So today I'm going to help you think about how do you think about that team of people that you manage and how to utilize their strengths. So sometimes people ask me, well, how do I go about applying some of these strengths concepts with my team? Well, really, one thing you have to think about is, for some of us, it's pretty easy to manage on an individual basis, meaning we treat people individually because we have that natural strength of doing that, where some of us are a little bit more about consistency and rules, so we treat everybody the same. Well, one thing to really think about in management is we really have to think about there might be rules that are consistent for people to abide by because it does allow us to manage things easier. It allows us to set clear expectations. And for some of us, that's okay. And that's better, easier, and more consistent. But at the end of the day, we can still have those rules in place, but I really want you to think about who is that person? Who is that individual that I'm managing? So when I go out and make presentations to groups of managers, sometimes I do some pre-work ahead of time with the individuals the managers manage. And I'll ask them a couple questions. And one of the questions I ask them is, I wish my manager would just blank. And they need to fill in the blank. So it's very interesting the feedback that I get. And most of the time I find it consistent that they say, I wish my manager would just understand me. I wish my manager would just tell me how I'm doing. I wish my manager would just help me understand the expectations and give me some feedback. So when I think about that first answer that they give, I wish they would just understand me. Many people want to be understood for who they are. And so for you as a manager to take time with individuals to understand who they are and how to manage them will make them successful. It'll make your job a lot easier. Instead of taking time to just treat everybody the same, that you say, you know what, this is just what I'm going to do, and you're not getting the outcomes, it's best to be more effective by understanding each individual for who they are. So how do you go about doing this? How do we start applying these strengths concepts? Well, really, one activity that you can do in terms of you can do this as a team, which I find it helpful with a team because then everybody else can hear, is what is something, when you think about your work, what energizes you and what drains you? So when you think about and you walk around the room and you have everyone answer that question, what energizes you? Start thinking about the types of things that energizes them and the types of things that drains them. And it's interesting because there may be some of the things that you thought were opposite and all of a sudden you're like, And so then when you meet with them one-on-one, I think it's digging into them, asking them questions further about what do they love to do and what gets in their way and how you can really understand them better. And understand, strengths, and sometimes we look at our style of management versus that person as an individual, and we might have some things that don't connect. Like let's just say you're a manager with very high responsibility, and you have an individual that doesn't have high responsibility. You may think that their follow-through isn't good. You may think that they're, a little lax on their timelines. Well, guess what? You need to have those conversations with them and help them think about what is their way to get to that outcome based off that. So some people are driven by getting things done. We like checking things off the list. We like follow through. We get things done. We don't understand then why everybody else doesn't. Okay, so for a manager that has that, and some people have a lot of high relationships, and their motivation isn't about checking it off the list. Their motivation isn't about the follow through. And gosh, I'm glad I got that done. That feels so good. Their motivation is, I don't want to let you down. I love my relationship with you, therefore I don't want to let you down. So their motivation comes from the relationship side. So understanding each individual and where that comes from would be very, very powerful for you to think about as you manage others. The other thing is you might have some great thinkers who don't get a lot done. And again, when we think about our style of management in our society today about how much we, quote, get done, because many times we have pressures around clients' needs or internal needs, project needs, you really have to sit and think about, there's some people who are really, really great thinkers and that you can't see them, quote, doing things. And so sometimes people think, well, what do they do? Well, some of our best ideas come from those great thinkers. So I don't want you judging people based upon that intensity level of how fast they're moving versus if they're one that's more quiet and thoughtful, but they may have some really, really good ideas that they can share. They may be the one coming up with the next best thing, but they're not as verbal as others. So again, very difficult to manage people because many times everybody's so different that we're really trying to understand them. But as a manager, the best way for you to understand people and make most effective use of their time and your time and the outcomes is thinking about who they are. So for positive charge this week, I'd like you to think about first sitting down and understanding who each person you manage is. What are their strengths and what are their challenges? And second, maybe have a team activity where you can go around and think about what energizes and what drains each individual. That way you can, again, focus on the individual and think about what they do best. As a manager, it's really important to help your people succeed and really bring the best out of them and think about how you can engage them every day and help them feel valued. So hopefully today you can take a few of these ideas about strengths application to make that successful both for them and you. Thanks for joining us today, and remember to get your mind on.